So this presentation is called Life After Save, Your Student Loan Playbook for Debt Management, Relief, and Forgiveness. Today we'll go over what EdCap is, some new updates, the future of student loans, some different information about repayment plans, public service loan forgiveness, how to achieve public service loan forgiveness, some different guidance for borrowers, delinquency, default, and collections. And at the end, we have some links, and we will distribute this presentation so you will have access to the links as well. So about EdCap. EdCap stands for the Education Debt Consumer Assistance Program, and it's a program of the Community Service Society created to help tackle the student debt crisis in New York State. I work for Legal Assistance of Western New York, and Legal Assistance of Western New York is one of the members of the EdCap network. There's a bunch of different agencies that cover all areas of New York State to assist people with their student loan issues. So we can assist people with determining their best student loan repayment options, accessing loan forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge programs, assist people with applying for consolidation and deferment, resolve issues with loan servicers and lenders, get out of default, and also understand financial aid offers and make a plan to go to college with less debt. So the student loan portfolio is moving to the Treasury. The Trump administration announced an interagency agreement called the Federal Student Assistance Partnership, which paves the way for 1.7 trillion federal student loan portfolios to be moved from the Department of Education to the Treasury Department in stages. So the first stage is that the Treasury will assume operational control of defaulted federal student loans. They will use private agencies to carry out collection efforts and help with loan rehabilitation. Phase two is the Treasury will provide operational support for non-defaulted student loans and eventually other Department of Ed functions such as the FAFSA, which is the application for federal student aid. So currently, right now, nothing is happening. Borrowers do not need to take any action. Defaulted loans are currently not being collected on. Um, and this may face legal challenges, so stay tuned. This is just something to take note of for the future. The future of student loans, borrowing limits. So there are new borrowing limits coming this summer. There is no change to undergraduate direct loans. However, there are some pretty big changes for graduate school. So the former rule for graduate school was that you would be able to borrow up to the cost of attendance. That is no longer an option. So for master's degrees, there's a $20,500 annual limit and a lifetime limit of $100,000. For professional degrees, such as law or medical school, there's a $50,000 annual limit and a lifetime limit of $200,000 loans. That means that if your school costs more than $200,000, you will have to look into other sources of funds to attend school. Grad Plus loans will be phased out starting July 1st, 2026. And Parent Plus loans, which also was up to the cost of attendance for undergraduate school for children. There's an annual limit of $20,000 per child and a lifetime limit of $65,000 per child, and that includes both parents. However, current students are being grandfathered in under the current rules. So if a student has a direct loan for graduate school that was dispersed before July 1st, 2026, they can borrow under the current existing rules, which is up to the cost of attendance, for a maximum of 3 years, so they can complete the student's program of study. However, all the loans must be paid back under the new rules that we're going over after. So people who start grad school after July 1st, 2026, and take out loans dispersed after July 1st, 2026, will have these new rules. If you are currently in school and already have taken out loans, you are going to be able to be grandfathered in to borrow up to the cost of attendance. Repayment plan summary. So these are the traditional repayment plans. So traditional repayment plans are just you need to pay back your loan within the payback period. Um, Only the standard 10-year fixed plan counts towards public service loan forgiveness. However, starting July 1st, 2026, anyone who takes out any new loan, so this is even if you attended school before, if you are taking out any loan dispersed after July 1st, 2026, the only standard plan you will have access to is the new standard fixed plans. So this is for new borrowers. They will be paying off their loan within 10 to 25 years, and the amount of years is based on your loan balance. The payment calculation is based on your balance, interest rate, and payback period. Um, and it would only count towards public service loan forgiveness if you fell in the 10-year payback period category. But again, you couldn't select the 10-year payback category. It would only be given to you based on your loan amount. And then these other standard plans are just plans available to current borrowers. And income-driven repayment plans, these are typically more affordable plans. They're based on your income and your family size. So, and the new plan coming this summer is the Repayment Assistance Plan or the RAP plan. And this is going to be the only income-driven repayment plan available to borrowers who are taking out loans after July 1st, 2026. So if you take out any loans after July 1st, 2026, you are a new borrower. You will not have access to any of the other plans, only RAP, and then the other standard plan that we went over on the um, other slide. So income-based repayment, there's two of them. There's an old one for borrowers who have loans dispersed prior to July 1st, 2014, and a new one for borrowers who have their first loans dispersed from July 1st, 2014 to June 30th, 2026. So if you took out any loan before July 1st, 2026, you are considered an old borrower and you would only have access to the income-based repayment plan or the RAP plan when it comes in. And so IBR new is also staying. Payee and ICR, which are two different income-driven repayment plans, will be phased out in 2028. The SAVE plan has been eliminated by court action and it is no longer available to borrowers. So these plans all have different payment calculations based on a different percentage of your discretionary income, and they all have a different forgiveness timeline. So income-driven repayment forgiveness is when you pay into your loans for a certain amount of years. So for old IVR, you need to make 25 years of payments on your loans. After those 25 years, whatever is remaining on your loan balance is forgiven. For RAP, the forgiveness timeline is 30 years. So after 30 years of making payments in RAP, if you still have a loan balance, whatever is remaining is forgiven. And all income-driven repayment plans are public service loan forgiveness eligible plans. Repayment. So we went over this. So borrowers who are taking loans after July 1st, 2026 will only have two options. That's the standard fixed repayment plan and the repayment assistance plan or RAP. Um, the difference between RAP and other income-driven repayment plans is the minimum payment is $10. In other income-driven repayment plans, so in any of these plans, if a person's income is low enough, their monthly payment can be zero, or if they have no income at all, their payment is going to be $0. In RAP, even if you have no payment, your minimum payment will be $10, which sounds low, but a lot of people may not be able to afford $10 a month. Sort of a benefit of RAP is the 50-month monthly principal subsidy. So if your monthly payment does not cover the interest and reduce the principal by $50, the government will pay up to $50. For RAP, if you are married and you file jointly with your spouse, your income-driven repayment plan is going to be based on both of your incomes. If you file separately from your spouse, your payment in RAP will be based only on your income. and that can often result in lower monthly payment amounts. And again, if you pay into RAP for 30 years, whatever is remaining on your loan balance is forgiven. So the new rule is from the One Big Beautiful Bill, all loans must be paid back in the same repayment plan. So this applies to loans for students and to Parent Plus loans. So this means if you take out any new loans on or after July 1st, 2026 date, you are considered a new borrower, and all your loans, including the ones you took out prior to July 1st, 2026, must be paid in RAP or the new standard plan. For Parent Plus borrowers are parents or grandparents or some sort of guardian who takes out loan for a dependent. If you have Parent Plus loans, your loans will not be eligible for any income-driven repayment plan, not RAP, not any other plan. Um, and you will have to pay back your loan in a standard plan, which for a lot of people could be potentially unaffordable. And you have no access to any income-driven repayment plans or forgiveness programs, such as public service loan forgiveness. However, there is an exception. If you have both student loans for yourself and Parent Plus loans for a child, you can pay the student loans in RAP and the Parent Plus loans in the standard plan. Repayment plans for legacy borrowers. So again, this July 1st, 2026 date is very important. A legacy borrower is someone who does not take out or consolidate loans on or after July 1st, 2026. Consolidating loans is basically creating a brand new loan. So you're turning, for example, your Parent Plus loan into, you're consolidating it and creating a direct consolidation loan. So legacy student borrowers can access the income-driven repayment plans Payee and ICR until July 1st, 2028, and then they will have to transition to IBR or RAP. So income-based repayment plans no longer have the partial financial hardship enrollment test, which is good because that means in the past, if people made too much money, they would not be eligible for IBR. That's no longer the rule. So legacy Parent Plus borrowers, they must have fully consolidated loans that have been dispersed before July 1st, 2026. Um, we recommend submitting the consolidation application as soon as possible. Once consolidated, these Parent Plus borrowers must enroll in the income contingent repayment plan and make one payment. They have to do this before ICR is phased out in 2028. After that, they can access IBR. ICR can be more affordable for people, but typically I've seen IBR to be the more affordable repayment plan. Older loans consolidated on or after July 1st, 2026 will be considered new loans and will be subject to more restrictive repayment options that we went over. So this is so we've been doing this all year outreach, really trying to get Parent Plus borrowers to consolidate prior to July 1st, 2026. So when people consolidate their loans, they submit the consolidation application, it's processed, and then there is a specific disbursement date or distribution date. That date has to be before July 1st, 2026. So, for example, if I submitted the consolidation application on June 29th, 2026, it's extremely unlikely that it's going to be processed or dispersed before July 1st, 2026. So although I did submit the consolidation application prior to the July 1st date, I will still be considered a new borrower, and I would be, if I was a Parent Plus borrower, I would need to pay back my loans in only the standard plan. So yeah, so Parent Plus borrowers, if they haven't consolidated, they really should have consolidated if they want access to any income-driven repayment or any forgiveness options. If you currently have Parent Plus loans and are planning to borrow beyond July 2026, again, you will be locked into the standard plan. So, Parent Plus borrowers could consider funding the rest of education with private loans or other non-federal sources for their dependent children. So the end of the SAVE plan, the Saving on a Valuable Education plan was the most affordable repayment plan for most student loan borrowers. However, the plan faced legal challenges starting April 2024, and borrowers who have been in the SAVE plan have been in a forbearance since July 2024. A forbearance is a temporary time where you don't have to make payments on your student loans. SAVE would have been eliminated in July of 2028. However, parties to the lawsuit recently agreed to a settlement and has ended the plan early. So, starting July 1st, 2026, borrowers who are in this current forbearance will begin getting notices that they need to transition to another repayment plan. They have 90 days from the date that they received that notice to select a different plan. If they do not transition out before, they will be automatically placed in the standard repayment plan. So for borrowers who are currently in the safe forbearance, they can stay there for now. The earliest anyone will be forced out of the plan is early or end of September. However, borrowers who are in the safe forbearance, interest is accruing on your loans, and this time does not count towards forgiveness. And even if you do miss the transition deadline and wind up in the standard plan, you can still submit an application at any time. We just recommend that people don't miss payments. So why remain in the safe forbearance? I currently have seen a lot of people who they cannot afford any other repayment plan other than the safe plan. So they're sort of remaining in the safe forbearance, weighing their option because they cannot afford to switch out to another plan, even another income-driven repayment plan, and start making payments. A lot of people, they might be waiting to transition to the WRAP plan. This plan is not available until July 1st, 2026, and borrowers will not be forced out of SAVE until after that date. And this is the EdCap repayment plan calculator. I use this with almost every person I meet with. You enter in your income and loan information, and then it provides an estimate of your monthly payment plans. It's a really good tool, and it's pretty easy to use. So we will have this link to send out. Just some small other changes. Loans disbursed on or after July 1st, 2027 will not be eligible for economic hardship or unemployment deferments, and they can only be in forbearance for 9 months during any 24-month period. Rehabilitation of defaulted loans. Starting July 1st, 2026, you will get two chances to rehabilitate a defaulted loan. Currently, you are only allowed to do that one time. Create a long-term plan to eliminate your debt. So, three key forgiveness programs. The first is income-driven repayment forgiveness. That's when your loans are forgiven after making 20 to 30 years of qualifying payments in an income-driven repayment plan. There is no employment requirement, and a lot of people received retroactive credit on a set of relaxed rules. So, for example, you needed to have Ed held loans before June 30th, 2024. It's no longer going on. This is like way in the past. But if someone missed a payment, they made a partial payment, they were in a forbearance, they were in a specific deferment, they got time towards the 20 to 30 years of qualifying payments that normally would have counted. So if you saw in the news, like all the people who were getting forgiveness over the past 2 years, a lot of those people were people who benefited from the IDRF account adjustment. And again, if you consolidate your loans, you are creating a brand new loan and it resets your qualifying payment count to zero. So if I were to consolidate my old loans today, I would have a brand new loan and I would have to make 20 to 30 years of qualifying payments before that loan was forgiven. So people should definitely take that into mind when consolidating their loans. Forgiven balances and income-driven repayment forgiveness may be taxable starting in 2026. Public service loan forgiveness. So you need to make 120 qualifying monthly payments or 10 years of payments. After that, your remaining loan balance is forgiven. So this is for people who are working for qualifying government or nonprofit employers. You need to have only time after October 1st, 2007 counts. You need to have direct loans. You need to be in an income-driven repayment plan or the standard 10-year fixed repayment plan. However, you would need to switch out of the standard 10-year fixed repayment plan at some point because in the 10-year fixed repayment plan, you would pay off your loans in the 10 years. But if you're in there for part of the time, it would count. Their definition of full time is 30 hours a week, and you need to be working for one or more qualifying employers, which is again nonprofit or government. Payments do not need to be consecutive. You must meet the employment requirements at the time you submit your final application. So I've had people, even though they have a lot of history for public service loan forgiveness and all of it was after October 1st, 2007, they retired. So they were not eligible for public service loan forgiveness. You need to be employed full time when you make after you reach 120 qualifying payments and you submit your final application. So the public service loan forgiveness buyback allows people to purchase months spent in a disqualifying status. So you need to have 120 months of qualifying employment in your record. But maybe you were in the state forbearance or you were missing payments or in some other disqualifying status. You can purchase back the missed monthly payments that you did not make, but you need to have already been working at a qualifying employer for 10 years. However, the backlog for the buyback applications is currently estimated to be around 3 years. So we are currently telling people to, if you do not rely on the buyback as of right now, it never hurts to apply for it, but people shouldn't count on it to be processed anytime soon. And for PSLF, forgiven balances are not taxable at the federal or state level in New York State. And to apply for public service loan forgiveness, you use the PSLF help tool on your studentaid.gov account. It's very easy. And we have the link at the end for this. So a total and permanent disability discharge, if you have a physical or mental disability or a chronic condition that prevents you from earning a livable wage or engaging in substantial gainful employment, you can apply to have your loans discharged. So this is a complete discharge or of your whole loan balance, federal loan balance. You may be eligible if you are a disabled veteran and meet specific criteria through the VA. If you receive SSDI, SSI, or SSR and meet certain requirements, or also the most common way I've seen people do it is the medical professional science aid certification form. So this can be a doctor, a nurse practitioner, a physician's assistant, um, and they need to sign the TPD form, which is then uploaded to your studentaid.gov account or faxed or sent in. And we have the link to go over TPD. So there are three strategies that we recommend to people. The first is to pay your debt in full as quickly as possible. So this strategy is best for people with low loan balances or high income. So if you have a really high income and you know that your monthly payment in an income-driven repayment plan is going to be high, you just want to pay off your loan balance, you always have the option to make lump sum payments or pay more than the required amount regardless of what your monthly payment is. So you can pay more, and this will actually have less interest accrue on your loan because you're aggressively attacking your loan and paying it off as fast as possible. So you pay less than you would have. And this works best for standard plans or traditional plans. The second strategy is pay the minimum required and pursue forgiveness. So this is best for borrowers with high balances or low to moderate income. So these people who choose this strategy, they're going to pay the lowest amount possible in an income-driven repayment plan. As for public service loan forgiveness, that's going to be 10 years of payments while working. For income-driven repayment forgiveness, that's going to be 20 to 30 years of making payments. And then after you meet the amount of qualifying payments needed, whatever is remaining on your loan balance is forgiven. And for this strategy, making extra payments is not advisable. The goal is to pay the minimum amount required in an income-driven repayment plan until your loans are forgiven. And the third is pay the minimum required and try to avoid a default until you pass away. So if you know you're not gonna pay off your loans and you know you're not going to be eligible for forgiveness, you can just pay the minimum amount possible. Again, try to avoid going into default until you pass away. Federal student loans are dischargeable upon death, which means that your children, your estate, no one is going to be responsible for paying back this debt after the borrower passes away. It is discharged. And this is often chosen by older borrowers who cannot realistically repay their loans. Delinquency, default, and collections. So after 30 days of missed payments, borrowers are assessed a late fee. After 90 days, they are delinquent. After 270 days of missed payments, they are at risk of default. So default can has a ton of negative consequences. You immediately owe all of your debt. You have no access to income-driven repayment plans, forbearance, deferment, and you're not earning any credit towards any forgiveness programs because default is an ineligible status. You have no access to federal student aid if you want to continue your education. And you are also at risk of involuntary collections. However, this is currently paused. We do not know when it is going to resume, but it is not going on right now. But this is the federal government, so they can take up to 100% of your taxes. They can offset Social Security up to 15%, but they cannot leave the borrower with less than $750 per month. And they can also do administrative wage garnishment, which is up to 15% of disposable pay. Um, If you are delinquent, which is the 90 days, you can request a retroactive forbearance. So, a borrower, if you have time spent in for time left in forbearance, you can call your servicer and request a retroactive forbearance. Because once you're in default, there's only two ways to get out, and that is consolidation and rehabilitation. So, we've already gone over consolidation. You are creating a brand new loan. It can be completed in 30 to 90 days. If you consolidate, the default and delinquency still shows on your credit history, though. Loan rehabilitation is when you make 9 monthly payments within 10 months. So this takes 10 to 12 months. The great part, though, is that the default status is removed from your credit report after completion. This restores eligibility for income-driven repayment and forgiveness programs after you complete the loan rehabilitation program. So yes, these are just two ways. They both have their pros and cons. And something we would do at EdCap is go over these two options with the borrower and discuss which route is better for them to take. And here is our contact information. So I will stop the recording if anyone has any questions.